Hi, and welcome to today's video focusing on assembly constraints using Autodesk Inventor Professional. Who's ready to build a s'more? In previous videos in class time, we covered the measurement and modeling of each part of the s'more assembly, the chocolate, the marshmallow, and the graham cracker. We also covered how to place parts in an Inventor assembly file. Today, we will focus on assembling the parts using the Make Constraint tool. I would like you to follow along on your computer assembling your s'more model. By the end of this video, you should have a completed s'more assembly model. As always, you can stop the video, take notes, or replay a section to ensure full understanding before going forward. Everyone ready to build a s'more? Let's take a look and see how it's done. In order to follow along with this video, you will need to have the previously created assembly file where we loaded your graham cracker pieces, your chocolate bar, and your marshmallow. In addition, you should have open an orthographic drawing of the graham cracker that you modeled, complete with dimensions, as well as the chocolate bar, complete with dimensions. You will utilize the dimensions later in this video for proper placement of the chocolate bar on the graham cracker. Moving back to the assembly file, we can now begin constraining these objects together. The first step would be to select one of the graham cracker pieces, move over to the tree, right-click, and then come down to the word grounded. We want to ground one of the objects in the assembly so that that object can no longer be moved. As you can see, the remaining objects can still move around. We will now start the constraining process by moving up to the ribbon bar and selecting the Constrain tool. When we select the Constrain tool, we now see the Place Constraint dialog box. Now, as a note, I'm reminding you that you should be taking notes on what we select and what each particular tool does as we move forward. Remember, you can always stop the video, write down some notes that you can then utilize later when the video is not in front of you playing. So as we move to the Place Constraint dialog box, we're going to utilize the first tool called the Mate tool, and there are two solution options for this tool. It has a simple mate constraint, and then it has a flush constraint. We're going to utilize the simple mate constraint first. Make sure that is selected. Then we're going to move, and we now need to be able to select the bottom of the chocolate piece. So I will utilize the Free Orbit tool, and I will rotate the entire assembly so I can see the bottom of the chocolate bar. I will then select the bottom of the chocolate bar. You can see the white edge highlighting the bottom plane of the chocolate bar, and my cursor also has an arrow pointing down. When I select the bottom, there will be a slight color change on the face of the chocolate bar. I will then use my Free Orbit tool and rotate the entire assembly around so I can see the top of the graham cracker. Again, I will then select the face of this object. You can see it turns white and I have an arrow pointing away. And once I make the selection, Inventor has a wonderful preview tool here. You can see the check next to these glasses that shows what Inventor will do if we were to apply that particular constraint. In this instance, the chocolate bar will be placed in a mate constraint with the face of the graham cracker. This is what we would like to have happen. I will go ahead and hit apply. I'm going to cancel out of my constraint tool now because I want to investigate further just what has happened. I can no longer move the chocolate bar away from the plane of the graham cracker, but I can slide that back and forth. If I turn back to an isometric view and view my movement of the chocolate bar, it looks as if it is not constrained at all, as if it might not have worked. But if I turn to another view, you can see that it will not move away, but yes, it will slide back and forth along the plane. It is necessary at this point to add additional constraints to fix the chocolate bar to the center of the graham cracker. What we will do now is we will utilize the constraint tool again, specifically the mate constraint, and then also the same solution mate again, and we will utilize the constraining of an edge of the chocolate bar to the face of the graham cracker. So I will select the edge of the chocolate bar, and I will come and select the face of the graham cracker. Again, my preview is showing me that the edge will become flush in a mate constraint to the chocolate bar. What I would like to have happen now is I want to take and be able to push the chocolate bar to the center of the graham cracker. This is where the dimensions of the graham cracker and the chocolate bar become very important. In order to illustrate, I'm going to go to the orthographic drawings and look at the dimensions. The graham cracker has a length of 57. The chocolate bar has a length of 25.86. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize my calculator to illustrate the math involved, and I'm going to take 57.00 and I'm going to subtract 25.86. What that gives me, 31.14, I'm going to take this number and then divide that by 2. 15.57 will be the equal distance on either side of the graham cracker and space the chocolate bar in the center. So 15.57. I'm going to go back to my assembly file, and I'm going to take and use my offset tool to push the chocolate bar towards the center of the graham cracker. Looking at the arrow on my indicator, I'm going to then be able to see that I need to use a negative number. So it will be negative 15.57 in order to move to the center of the graham cracker. So by placing the information in the offset tool, you can see that the chocolate bar has been pushed to the center of the graham. I will go ahead and hit apply. What I now need to do is I need to center the Hershey bar in the opposite direction. Notice now I do not have as much free movement while in the isometric plane. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask you to attempt to center the Hershey bar using the edge constraint and the face, just as we've done, and then stop the video and then come back and watch the video to ensure that what you have done is correct. Well, how did you do? Were you able to center the chocolate bar on the graham cracker? Did you use 9.54 as the information for equal spacing on either side? Well, let's go ahead and walk through this together. I'm going to go back to the orthographic drawing with dimensions, and I'm going to see that the length of the graham cracker is 64. The length of the chocolate bar is 44.92. So I'm going to use my calculator again to illustrate the math, and I'm going to take 64.00 and I'm going to subtract 44.92 to get 19.08. I will then divide by 2 because I want equal spacing on either side of the chocolate bar. I come up with 9.54. I can now come back to my assembly file, utilize the constraint tool, the mate constraint, and again the same solution as mate. I'm going to select that bottom edge of the chocolate bar, and then I'm going to select the face of the graham. I'm now going to then place the offset just as we've done before, and I'm going to use a negative number, negative 9.54. And you can see that my chocolate bar is then previewed as to be in the middle of the graham cracker. I'll go ahead and apply that constraint. Now I'm going to cancel out so I can just move around, grab the Hershey bar, and show you that it can no longer move. So the next object that I need to constrain is my marshmallow. So what I would like to do is constrain the marshmallow, but I'm going to need to create an axis in order to use the center of the marshmallow as a constraint point. In order to make an axis, I need to come to my Work Feature ribbon bar and select the Axis tool. By selecting the Axis tool, I am then able to mouse over the outside round edge of the marshmallow and select the marshmallow. What that does is it places a small yellow axis through the center of the part. I can now use that center axis to position the marshmallow properly. I will grab my constraint tool, using again the mate and the mate tool, and I'm going to grab the axis. So I grab the axis, and I'm going to come and again grab a face. And by doing so, I'll zoom out so we can see the marshmallow has constrained itself through the center axis to the outside edge. Now I'll turn the entire assembly so you can see that we may be very far away, but we are still in plane. I'm going to go ahead and then assume that I need to push the marshmallow from edge over to center. So I'll go back to my isometric view, and I'm going to need to use that same information regarding the graham cracker's overall size. So again, I will head back to my orthographic drawing and just ensure that the size I'm looking for is 57. So I'm going to go back to my calculator and use 57.00 divided by 2 gives me 28.5. Back to the assembly, and I'm going to utilize a negative number because I want to push away from my arrow, and I will use negative 28.5. And what I have done by hitting apply is I've now taken and pushed my marshmallow, you can see the axis, to the center of my assembly. I could take and then move this closer, and you can see that this is now located on the center of the assembly. However, what I will still need to do is I will need to be able to locate this from a second edge in order to fix the marshmallow to the center. So I will use that same particular access constraint, mate to mate, and select that access to a face, and we'll use the same exact number again, where that will be negative 28.5, and that sends it to the center of my assembly. And you can see now that the marshmallow is now fixed to the center of the assembly. However, its height has not been fixed. So I now need to set height for the marshmallow to touch the top of the chocolate bar. Setting the height will happen in the same way, where we will grab the constraint tool again, and again it's going to be type mate, solution mate, and I'm going to then use my free orbit and rotate my entire assembly around so I can grab the bottom of the marshmallow, and it's the face of the marshmallow, and then I'm going to free orbit rotate back around till I can see the top of the chocolate. Now, I can select the indentation face, or I can select the top edge of one of the pieces of edges of chocolate. I'm going to utilize the indentation face. What that has done is it has now placed the marshmallow inside of the chocolate bar by 1 millimeter. I know that that is 1 millimeter because if I were to look at my section view of my chocolate bar, I can see that it is a 1 millimeter indentation. Going back to my assembly, I can then go ahead and then give it a 1 millimeter offset. Oops. Here we go, 1 millimeter offset, and then I can see that my chocolate bar is now directly flush. My marshmallow is now directly flush with the top of my chocolate bar, and I will hit apply. The next piece is to be able to take and constrain the graham cracker to the top of the marshmallow. And again, we're going to use the same tools we've done before, and I'd like you to take another moment to go ahead and stop the video and try the constraint tool. Try the mate and mate to see if you can apply the proper constraints to make the top of the graham cracker attach to the top of the marshmallow. Alright, how did you do? If something didn't work out and you want to come back and follow ahead with us, you can use again the undo tool right here to undo constraints and move back to where we were. What I'll do now is I'll grab my constraint tool, grab the mate solution, then my free orbit to rotate so I can see the bottom of the graham cracker, and grab the bottom of the graham cracker, and then I will use again my free orbit tool to rotate around and grab the top of the marshmallow. and then the constraint has been set. There's no offset, and I hit apply. Now the last set of constraints that we're going to need to place is going to then position the graham cracker so that they are directly over top of each other. Looking at this graham cracker, I'm going to go ahead and grab the constraint tool again. This time we're going to use the mate type, but this time we're going to use flush. Not mate, but flush. So I select the proper solution, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab face of the graham cracker and face of the graham cracker. And what that flush tool is doing is it is setting up a relationship where the two faces are in plane with each other. I'll go ahead and apply that constraint, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other side, because this graham cracker can still move because it needs one more face constraint. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my constraint tool, again mate, and then solution will be the flush solution. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab the face of the base graham cracker and then the face of the top graham cracker, and go ahead and hit apply and then cancel. And what we have here now is a graham cracker that has been set and is ready for exploding. I'm going to hit save so I can save my assembly. Okay, so before moving forward, let's just do a quick look from the orthographic views. So from my right side, things look nice and set up and aligned. I know they're right because I did it mathematically. And then I look at this, hey, wait a minute. Shouldn't this marshmallow be centered? Why do you think that that is not sitting center in my particular graham cracker? I want you to take a moment, stop my video, and I want you to think about, why is this not centered? What happened? What were the numbers that we were using? See if you can figure it out. Take a few moments, then we'll talk about it. So were you able to figure it out? Thinking back to when we used our axis, we used the center axis of the marshmallow and we constrained to both edges. What we used for the number was 28.5 for both edges. But if we were to go back and look at our Smore orthographic drawing, you can see that one side is bigger than the other. So the same number for the center will not work. So we need to now come up with the second number that we would need to work with. So the second number in the length of the graham cracker is 64.0. So if we come and make 64.0 divided by 2, that's going to give us 32. So going back to the assembly, this particular constraint, this mate constraint under the work axis, shouldn't be 28.5. This side should be pushed in further. It should be 32. So what I can do is I can right click on that, I can hit edit, and instead of 28.5, I can highlight and type in 32. What that does is it then centers my marshmallow. This is a very good illustration of how, even though the constraints have been placed and the assembly has been put together, you can always go back and make adjustments to any one of your constraints. It's a wonderful way to assemble and work in Inventor. Well, I hope this helps, and I hope that you will be able to duplicate another assembly using the mate tool. Well, I hope that you remembered to save your file, because we're going to need that assembly drawing for the next portion of this assignment, and that's making the exploded assembly drawing. So I hope that you've learned how to make a quick assembly using the mate constraints, and can't wait to get to that s'more at the end. Good luck, and see you in the next video.